Britain is building a mine in plain sight, but you wouldn't know it. It's the Woodsmith polyhalite mine. Sounds new, right? As the name indicates, Woodsmith is a polyhalite mine under construction just 2 miles south of Whitby in North York Moors National Park. Once completed, it'll be the deepest mine in Europe with the longest tunnel in Britain. The polyhalite is deposited 5,250 feet below ground with an estimated size of 2.69 billion tons. This makes it the largest polyhalite deposit in the world. Thus, it's safe to say that the UK has hit the jackpot, as this construction project can bring an estimated revenue of £100 billion over a period of 50 years. So, what exactly is this mega project all about? And why has it caused a stir in the fertilizer industry all of a sudden? To answer this, we first need to understand what's polyhalite and the advantages it offers over other forms of potash fertilizers. Polyhalite is a naturally occurring mineral that contains potassium, sulfur, magnesium, and calcium, plus traces of numerous micronutrients, making it an ideal natural fertilizer. Once it's extracted, it'll be crushed and granulated to form Poly-4, a multi-nutrient, low-chloride fertilizer. With the expected growth of the population by 2050 and the subsequent effect of over-farming, the capacity of arable lands is decreasing. This has pushed farmers and agricultural experts to find more sustainable solutions to increase the fertility of the soil. As mentioned before, the polyhalite's directly extracted and crushed without the need for chemical processing. For this reason, it has a lower carbon footprint in contrast to conventional fertilizers. To prove this, Anglo-American, the company spearheading this super mine, carried out 3,500 agronomic studies and 1,800-plus demonstrations to back their claims. These studies tested polyhalite's efficiency against other potassium-based fertilizers on broadacre and high-value crops. The results were nothing but astonishing. They consistently show that Poly-4 outperformed in terms of crop yield and quality. Executives at Anglo-Americans are desperate to market it as an alternative to MOP or simply potassium chloride. Will the Poly-4 find a league of its own in an industry that's rigid to change? Only time will tell. However, this doesn't stop the enthusiasm of the mining giant Anglo-American, who's aiming for it to be operational by 2027. What's even more surprising is that most people in the industry believe that this giga project would never be built. If you looked at it a few years ago, you would think the same. This mine was originally owned by Sirius Minerals, which started its construction in May of 2017. Their aim was to complete it by 2021. Woodsmith got its name from two geologists named Peter Woods and Dr. Frederick Smith, who were working on the project. Sirius's financial troubles began in 2019 when it was scrambling to raise $600 million to fund its first phase of construction. The company's share price dropped drastically by 50%, giving them a hard time to continue at the same pace. In 2020, Anglo-Americans made an offer of £400 million to purchase it from Sirius, who agreed in desperation. With a new team and a new vision, Anglo-American took a completely different approach in terms of engineering and marketing. However, it's not the only company mining polyhalite. Israel Chemical's Bulby is another big name in this game. They are also situated near Woodsmith and sell the mineral globally under the name polysulfate. Once the Woodsmith mine becomes operational, it'll completely outstrip its competitor. These mineral deposits were formed when an ancient sea dried up around 260 million years ago. Polyhalite was discovered in the 1930s when Whitby was being investigated for possible reserves of oil and gas. It wasn't until 2011 that some serious thought was given about mining polyhalite. After the Northmore National Park authorities approved the initial proposal, test drilling was done at various sites along the coast between Whitby and Scarborough. The subsequent geological survey discovered the world's largest and highest-grade polyhalite resource. Due to the vast reserves of polyhalite, it's expected that this potash mine will have a life expectancy of 100 years and has been labeled as Britain's supermine. This is not without its fair share of criticism. Since the mining site's located at the heart of a national park, many are concerned about its impact on the environment. The York National Park's a scenic location with impressive cliffs, tall grass, and wide stretches of beautiful land. To counter this, the project's visibility is minimized. All major infrastructure at Woodsmith will be sunk below ground so that when the mine's completed, no equipment will be visible. This means there will be no giant winding towers that disturb the natural beauty of the land. Towers would be sunk in 200-foot deep chambers to make them completely invisible to a passerby. This is completely unusual for mining fields, which typically have tall headframes in place to lift machinery and people. Even if you try to look at Woodsmith mine from the air using a helicopter or a drone, the area will give you the illusion of a farm. They even built a curve at the access site, so anyone driving by would only see woodland. Let's walk through this insane engineering required to extract the ore from a 5,250-foot deep seam and turn it into a refined Poly-4 fertilizer. In a nutshell, two twin shafts will be constructed to bring polyhalite to the surface. It'll then be transported via a conveyor belt underground to a material processing facility in Wilton. The Wilton Industrial Complex is 23 miles away, so the extracted ore has to be transported outside Yorkshire Park. In this way, there's no added complexity of storage, pollution, or huge trucks to carry the raw material to the facility. Once the polyhalite's granulated at the facility, it'll be exported overseas through the port, which is only 2.5 miles away. There are two underground shafts, the service and the production shaft. The service shaft is 5,250 feet deep to provide access to workers to the pit button of the polyhalite seam. The headframes at the top of the shafts, which hoist workers and materials up and down, are hidden in 140-foot deep, 115-foot wide foreshafts to reduce surface visual impact. Interestingly, the same shaft isn't used to transport the polyhalite. There's a parallel production shaft running from the pit bottom to the mineral transport system. The mineral transport system is located 1,200 feet below ground. Its purpose was to collect the extracted polyhalite and load it onto a conveyor belt 23 miles long. This conveyor belt efficiently transports the minerals to Teesside, where the mineral handling facility is located. A 20-foot diameter tunnel boring machine is being used to create a passage all the way from Wilton to Whitbay. The 16-foot wide tunnel is lined with concrete to create a reinforced path that doesn't collapse under pressure of the soil above it. Another added advantage is the fact that the Wilton site also has a cement manufacturing plant. Hence, all the cement required to line the tunnel doesn't have to come from a far-flung place. The first TBM has been entered from a surface portal at Wilton. The head of the TBM is a sharp rock-cutting disc that progressively chips away the soil. It's important to note that the cutting action isn't continuous. After some meters, the TBM stops temporarily to line the surface of the tunnel with cement. Once the ground is secured, it moves forward to drill the rest. The debris of the drilled rock falls into the machine itself, which is transported to the surface via a conveyor belt inside. This innovation has made the whole process almost hands-free as far as drilling is concerned. The construction of the tunnel occurs in segments. Just as one TBM is inserted from Wilton, another will be inserted at Whitby. The only difference is that the latter can't be transported as a whole due to the limited area of the shaft. To overcome this problem, the parts of TBM are lowered down through the transportation shaft where it's assembled to be operated. This TBM is assigned to excavate the remaining 15 miles out of the 23 miles. In this fashion, both TBM meet in between, marking the end of the excavation. Both machines are disassembled and brought to the surface to make way for the conveyor belt to be installed. Once a conveyor belt's been put in place, it'll transport millions of tons of polyhalite at a speed of 6.5 meters a second. The conveyor belt doesn't stop at any point during its journey and only sees the daylight when it reaches its station, the handling facility. Upon its arrival at Wilton, it's temporarily stored in the shed. From there onwards, the polyhalite goes through several stages to be turned into a polyphore fertilizer capable of being transported. Ore from the conveyor belt's brought to the surge bin where it's crushed, milled, and then forwarded to the screening facility. At the screening facility, oversized ore will be separated and sent back for further crushing, while the remaining ore will be forwarded to the granulation area for conversion into pellets followed by drying. The final product will be covered and transported via conveyor bridges to the Redcar bulk terminal for export to customers. For Anglo-American, the key markets include Brazil, the US, and Europe. The key step, however, is to convince farmers in those targeted markets to use polyphore for their crops, either as the main or as the supplemental fertilizer. Given the already existing stress on cultivated land, it is possible to see a major shift from conventional chemical fertilizers to relatively more organic polyphore. It offers benefits beyond its nutritional value by creating a stronger soil structure with a more favorable environment for soil biology, improving erosion and nutrient leaching. Do you think the mine will have a lifespan of 100 years? And what do you think is the most impressive engineering used in building the mine? We have lost count of the times China plans to build the biggest something. This time, it's the Qingdao-Jiaozhou Bay Tunnel. It's expected to be the longest undersea tunnel for roads after the Rogfast Tunnel in Norway. Qingdao City lies on the main shore of Jiaozhou Bay and comprises 3 districts from south to north: the Xinan District, Xibei District, and finally the Likang District. The districts are divided based on the kind of buildings they have. For example, the Xinan is the most glamorous spot, hosting a variety of hotels, beaches, and other attractions. On the other hand, Xibei and Likang districts are both better known for commercial and tourism reasons. With a population of nearly 9 million, Qingdao is one of the largest cities in the Shandong province, the home of the famous philosopher Confucius. It also has one of the busiest ports in the world, the Qingdao Port. The Qingdao Port is open to 177 ports around the world, making Qingdao one of the most prosperous cities in the region. That's one of the many reasons it has the highest GDP of any city in the province. If you're visiting Qingdao, you can expect to find all sorts of cultural relics like churches, historic German architecture, and former residences of celebrities in the Qingdao Old Town. Why German? Well, it's because at the end of the 19th century, Qingdao became a German colonial outpost. So it's not uncommon to find old German-style buildings here and there. Being a coastal city, Qingdao has somewhat of a unique geometry. It has an east and west coast separated by the beautiful Jiaozhou Bay. This caused a gap between the east and west that needed to be bridged. In the past, most of the urban development was limited to the east coast. However, with the creation of the Jiaozhou Expressway, the interconnections of both sides improved. But due to the region's ever-increasing population, traffic congestion increased on the city's main arteries. To solve congestion as well as slash travel time, China invested in sea crossing structures. Currently, if you want to travel from the west side of Qingdao to the east or vice versa, you can take the longer route from the mainland using the Jiaozhou Bay Express or use the sea crossing bridge. In addition, there's the first Qingdao subsea tunnel, which opened in 2011 and connects the west coast with the Shannan district in the east. At the time, it was considered the world's longest open water bridge, totaling a length of 4.8 miles. Similarly, the Jiaozhou Bay Bridge is also one of the world's longest bridges with a total span of 16.6 miles. Both the bridge and the first Qingdao underwater tunnel were inaugurated on the same day as the Jiaozhou Bay Connection project. Shortly after the first tunnel was opened, research began on the second sea-spanning tunnel for road traffic. In total, 4 pre-feasibility and 15 feasibility studies were conducted by China's leading experts, including academic Qian Qihu. Spanning up to 10 miles, it'll feature 6 two-way lanes, making it longer than Norway's Reifalk Tunnel, which is a mile shorter. The bay is 20 miles long and 17 miles wide, with a surface area of 362 square kilometers. It's a natural inlet of the Yellow Sea with a depth of 33 to 49 feet. The bay supports 3 major ports: Qingdao, Huangdao, and Hongdao, all of which are ice-free during the winter. According to official data, the decreasing surface area of Jiaozhou is due to continuous construction projects that require heavy land reclamation. The marine species have also decreased by 2/3 during the last 50 years. Out of 170 species found in the northwestern part during the 1970s, only 17 were found in 1989. Such is the importance of this bay that after World War II ended, the Treaty of Versailles dictated that all former German Pacific territories, including Jiaozhou Bay, be given to Japan. This unexpected decision led to wide protests in China known as the May 4th movement, which is now regarded as a significant event in modern China history. As a result, the then Chinese government refused to sign the treaty. The recent developments in the Qingdao Bay area are a reflection of its past and present importance. The west coast of Qingdao, also known as Huangdao, is declared a state-level new area. For those who don't know, state-level new areas are urban districts that are given special economic and development support by the Chinese central government or regional government. In the mid-1980s, the Qingdao Economic and Technological Development Zone was built in the Huangdao district. The second Jiaozhou Bay Tunnel will not only further bind the east and west sides, but will also optimize the city's urban structure, allowing both sides of the strait to flourish. To build the tunnel, 8 million cubic meters of earth and stone were excavated from the seabed. This figure is more than Japan's Seikan Tunnel, which utilized 5.2 million cubic meters, and Europe's Channel Project, which consumed 4.8 million cubic meters. The tunnel's plan will incorporate an auxiliary service tunnel and is designed to accommodate speeds of up to 50 miles an hour. The tunnel will begin at the Huahe East Road in the West Coast New District and will pass under Jiaozhou Bay before landing at Qingdao Port and connecting to the East Coast. What makes the project complex, other than the fact that it's undersea, is there are 22 fault lines in this section of the bay, not to mention that the condition of the seabed varies with distance. The upper strata are soft, while the lower strata consist of full sections of hard rock. So, how do you make a tunnel through this mess? Well, there are a few ways. The first is the drill and blast method, which involves controlled blasting to make a path in the seabed. This method is great for both hard and soft rock. Next, we have the immersed tube tunnel. As the name is pretty self-explanatory, sections of the tunnel are created on dry land and lowered into the sea using cranes. An example of this is the Fehmarnbelt tunnel, the longest immersion tunnel in the world. But the problem with these is that not only are costly, but also require extensive land reclamation, which disturbs the marine ecosystem. Furthermore, immersed tube tunnels suit deep seas, like in the case of Fehmarn Tunnel, its deepest portion is 130 feet below the water's surface, while the Jiaozhou Bay is only 33 to 49 feet deep. So this option's out. Another option is single shield tunneling. This includes using a gigantic machine that drills through the soil. Picture a simple drill machine that makes a hole in a plank of wood. In essence, the tunnel machine is a drill machine of the sea. Since the tunneling machine is large, it is transported in pieces and assembled on the spot. But the real question is, how did this giant go inside the soil? Well, for that, tons and tons of soil is dug on the coastal area. The tunnel machine's main components include the cutter head, which is lowered through the portal and then assembled there. In this case, the engineers combined both drilling and blasting and shield tunneling to make the second Qingdao Bay Tunnel. Certain sections of the main line will be created using both methods, while the service tunnel and auxiliary caverns use and blast exclusively. The cutter head of the tunnel boring machine was successfully installed on November 13, 2023. The tunnel machine has a tunnel excavation diameter of 50 feet, a total length of 465 feet, and weighs over 5,000 tons. The tunnel machine proceeds by digging the soil and rock with a shield located at the front of the tunnel. The tunnel machine fills the space behind it with concrete as it progresses. The maximum depth is 224 feet, and the maximum water pressure reaches 9.4 bar on the tunnel. This is equivalent to bearing 9.4 kilograms on a fingernail-sized area. The TBM will start tunneling from the tunnel shaft located in Qingdao Port, heading west towards the coast, traversing various complex geological conditions. Although no official dates available, it's expected that this project will be completed and put into service by December 2027. Its construction is being spearheaded by Qingdao Consent Development, which invests and operates several key infrastructure projects in the municipality. The second tunnel will go a long way in solidifying Qingdao's position as a modern, dynamic city of the 21st century. Qingdao is also a major nodal city on the Belt and Road Initiative that connects continental and East Asia with Europe. Infrastructure projects like the Jiaozhou Bay Tunnel will go a long way in the field of China's maritime infrastructure and promoting trade and commerce. Up till now on this channel, we have discussed underwater tunnels and sea crossing bridges, but never quite as something as we're about to show you. Just the sheer scale of this engineering will blow your mind. It's the world's largest immersion tunnel connecting Denmark with Germany and stretching up to 18 kilometers. It'll be built across the Fehmarnbelt, a strait between the German island of Fehmarn and the Danish island of Lolland. It will not only connect Germany and Denmark, but will also serve as a connection for Scandinavian countries and the rest of Europe. It's designed as an alternative to the current ferry service from Rodby and Puttgarden, which carries millions of passengers every year. Where the crossing now takes 45 minutes by ferry, it'll take just 7 minutes by train and 10 minutes by car. If you look at the world map, you can see that Denmark and Germany are connected by land and share a border. So why do you need a tunnel? Well, it's because Denmark is a geographically complex country. It's a mix of 1,400 islands scattered across the Baltic Sea. Even Denmark's capital, Copenhagen, isn't located on its mainland, but rather one of the isolated islands, Zealand. This means that the fastest route to Germany or Central Europe is via the Fehmarn Strait. At present, the only means of transport could be a flight, ferry, or a train through the Danish mainland, which will then drop you to northern Germany. To avoid this 160-kilometer detour across the Danish mainland and make travel more comfortable and fast, a direct pathway needs to be created between the Danish islands and Germany. This is where the concept of the Immersion tunnel comes in. By making a more direct route, Europe would be just minutes away from Scandinavia and vice versa. But why did Germany and Denmark choose an immersion tunnel over conventional structures like a bridge or an underground tunnel? Is it worth disturbing the sea for human convenience? Stick with us to find out the answers. The Fehmarnbelt Tunnel is part of a Trans-European Transport Network, or TENT, which aims to streamline infrastructure and reduce the environmental impact of Europe's transport network. Under its flagship, Europe will oversee the construction of new roads, railways, inland waterways, airports, seaports, inland ports, and traffic management systems. The Fehmarn Tunnel will go a long way toward creating a more interconnected and efficient community. By now, people are desperate to find a solution to the transport bottleneck, and they're justified. Denmark is set to start taxing flights departing from Denmark to limit the effects of air pollution. This is due to the limited capacity of ferries, forcing people to commute via car or take a train. Currently, if you take the fastest train between Hamburg and Copenhagen, it'd take you around 4.5 hours. When the tunnel's completed, the same journey will take 2.5 hours. The traffic between the Scandinavian peninsula and Germany via Denmark can either take the ferry across Fehmarnbelt or take a longer route via bridges between the islands of Zealand, Funen, and the Jutland Peninsula. Discussion for the project can be traced back to the late 90s. At the time, both countries were eager to construct a sea crossing bridge rather than a tunnel. They envisioned a bridge with a 4-lane motorway and 2 electrified rail tracks. This solution was for years regarded as the most likely scheme, and detailed plans were drawn up. After a whole decade and several feasibility studies, the Danish project planner suggested that an immersed tunnel would instead present fewer construction risks and would cost about the same. So why was the bridge idea dumped away? The thing is that the seabed of the Fehmarnbelt was soft and hence unsuitable to support such a structure. An underwater sea tunnel was also rejected for the same reason. To construct a traditional tunnel, a tunnel boring machine is used that would dig the seabed. However, there was a risk of the seabed collapsing, burying all the valuable worth beneath the ocean. Not to mention that the cost of such an undersea tunnel would be outrageous. That's why an immersion tunnel was the only viable solution. An immersion tunnel means that parts of its structure will be built on land before being carried to its place in the ocean. In this way, it's a less invasive procedure rather than digging an underground tunnel. Valued at approximately $8 billion, the project will be financed by Denmark, which will collect a toll from the crossing. Germany will, however, pay 800 million euros to connect the crossing to its motorway network. European Investment Bank, EIB, provided a 123.5 million euro grant from the Connecting Europe Facility, CEF, for the project construction. The project has secured the money and the clearance from both the Danish and German governments. But how are they planning to build it? The first step in the process is the construction of a working harbor on the Rodbyhaven in Lolland, Denmark, and the Puttgarden on the island of Fehmarn. New channels and access roads have been constructed, utility connections installed, and several existing buildings of the construction site have been demolished. New water holes and amphibian fences have also been established around the construction site. The working harbor at Rodbyhaven will be the largest of the two, as this is where all the tunnel elements will be constructed. Factory halls will accommodate 6 production lines, 5 for the tunnel's standard elements and 1 for the special elements. A temporary village will be built for the 1,300 workers. The village was completed in the spring of 2023. The factory was completed in August 2023. The tunnel trench is being dredged by a fleet of special dredging vessels that'll dredge 19 million cubic meters of sandstone and soil. The dredged material will be deposited near the Rodbyhaven, where it'll be used to create new beaches and recreational areas. The work harbor will receive the delivery of huge quantities of sand, gravel, steel, and cement, all necessary elements for tunnel construction. The factory at Rodbyhaven will build 89 concrete elements, each weighing 73,000 tons. Together, their weight is equivalent to more than 13,000 elephants. The Fehmarnbelt tunnel will feature a 4-lane highway and a double-track railway. Each of the 89 tunnel elements will be 700 feet long, 137 feet wide, and 33 feet high. Each tunnel element will have 5 separate subtunnels, 2 for the cars, 2 for the trains, and 1 service tunnel in between. The tunnel elements will be placed on a 12-meter deep trench. The elements will be cast step by step in segments of approximately 80 feet in the factory. Each segment takes a total of 9 weeks to be completed. To ensure the quality of the casting process, the casting takes place inside climate-controlled halls. After all, it's an underwater project that's claimed to last 120 years in total. Each special element will include a basement area for technology. This will make the construction process and maintenance of the finished tunnel easier. Once an element's constructed, waterproof bulkheads are installed temporarily at both ends to keep a dry workspace inside. After that, it's taken to the dry port and towed into the place where it'll be lowered. The elements are then lowered to the seabed using cranes with high precision at the trench that was pre-dug by the dredging machines. At its highest depth, the tunnel will be 130 feet below sea level in the Baltic Sea. The bulkheads not only prevent water entry inside each element, but they also aid in connecting adjacent pieces. There's a sealed space between the bulkheads so that huge external pressure pushes them together when the water's pumped out. This ensures a completely waterproof and secure connection. Once all the elements are lowered through the cranes in their place, the work on the tunnel's technical and mechanical installations can commence. These include railway tracks, ventilation, cameras, communication systems, painting, and much more. Each of these systems will be thoroughly tested in the final part of the construction phase before the expected opening in mid-2029. To secure the tunnel, a layer of protective sand and gravel will be laid on both sides. With time, nature will transform it into a seabed, turning it into a haven for marine life. A tunnel portal is built in both Denmark near Rodbyhaven and near Germany near Puttgarden to connect the tunnel's railway and motorway with the upgraded and newly built roads and railways. While both countries are adamant about completing the project by 2029, there has been some pushback from the local communities, especially from the German side. The concerns range from the potential increase of train noise to the loss of jobs related to the ferry business. Even though this project has also created hundreds and thousands of jobs, critics argue that they're only temporary and will end upon the tunnel's completion. Then there's the environmental aspect of it. The marine life in this area of the Baltic Sea thrives in clear water conditions, something the dredging of the seabed to create the trench for the tunnel will disturb. The project handlers at the Fehmarnbelt AS pushed back by saying that their investigation has shown that there will be no harm to plant and animal life and the habitats of porpoises, birds, etc. In addition, as a result of this project, new natural areas and stone reefs on the Danish and German sides will be created. Nature needs space, and there will be more space for nature through the combined land and sea space. In theory, the Immersion tunnel is a fascinating feat in human engineering. As life in the sea continues undisturbed, beneath the seabed, there's another world dominated by humans and advanced technology. What are your thoughts on the Fehmarnbelt project? Will it beat other modes of transport like the ferry and air travel? Only time will tell. As far as technological advancements go, China is pretty far ahead. They achieve architectural marvels that seem impossible to other countries. I mean, this is a country that rebuilds an entire bridge in 24 hours, and it's as if nothing happened. Now China has another mega project, which is the China-Nepal Railway. This is a railway unlike any other, going for so many miles. However, that's not the most shocking thing about it. This railway is expected to go through the Great Himalayan mountain. And if you think they can't do it, then be ready to be amazed. But what is it exactly about this tunnel and railway line that makes it so unique? Well, let's find out. At the point where China's Tibet, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan, and other nations converge, there lies the world's highest mountain range, the Himalayas. This is a mountain range with spectacular landscapes and captivating glacier views. This has been one of the most coveted destinations for many adventurers and explorers. However, under all these towering peaks, one of the most remarkable projects in the history of transport is taking place. A team of China's construction workers is building a super tunnel that spans about 18.6 miles or 30 kilometers through the mountain. This tunnel is set to be used for state-of-the-art railway tracks. And given China's success with such insane projects, this is just another mere tunnel construction project for them. But why is China really focused on building this railway line? And how will they build this massive tunnel? Plans for this tunnel all started on August 8, 2022. This was when the foreign minister of Nepal visited China, and during the talks, Nepal expressed interest in establishing a comprehensive interconnected transport network with China. This network, which is the ongoing China-Nepal Railway, spans across the Great Himalayan landscape. However, this is not the first time such a concept has come up. However, this concept has existed for more than 4 decades. This was around the time when China's Mao Zedong extended an infrastructure commitment to Nepal, but it took all those years before the actualization of this project started. But why wait so long before starting this project? To understand the long delay, we have to look at the past a bit. You see, China and Nepal have faced a couple challenges in the past, and most of them were technical and financial. Because of this, they had to put a pause on the complex railway endeavor. However, China has since seen its infrastructure capabilities improve and evolve. With this, a significant investment of $4.3 billion by China was made to facilitate the construction of the China-Nepal Railway. This was in the year 2022. On the other hand, Nepal seems to really want this to work. This is because Nepal, on its own, is a landlocked country. This means they have had transportation issues. On the other hand, the mountainous terrain handlers travel locally, which has ended up restricting the nation's economic and trade development. Apart from connecting China to Nepal, the completed railway will also connect 3 major cities within Nepal, making commuting between them easier. In addition, Nepalese people will have a third option apart from roads or planes when going abroad. One of the designated sections of this insane project within China's borders meanders across the Tibet Autonomous Region. In the first half of 2022 alone, the region has seen more than 17 million tourists. Even if we assume that only 1/10 of these travelers visited Nepal by train via Tibet, Nepal's tourism industry would still see impressive growth with this project. Another benefit of this new railway is that it'll reshape Nepal's dependence on India for maritime transport. And with this, the country would grow both in foreign trade and socioeconomics. Laos, another landlocked country, would also benefit from the railway system, which would see its market structure grow. This is all thanks to it securing a major transportation channel through the China-Laos Railway project. Similarly, the China-Nepal Railway will also fuel Nepal's national development, allowing its citizens to enjoy the benefits of development. The China-Nepal Railway is currently one of the most formidable railway projects in the world. This project will go through the Himalayan region, encompassing seismic zones and glaciers. However, throughout the construction, the workers will have to deal with a number of unforeseen challenges. Among them are harsh weather conditions and the threat of mudslides. Taking all these factors into consideration, the project becomes even more complicated. According to some scientific expeditions, it's been found that there have been more than 1,000 mudslides along the railway route in recent years. But it gets worse. Some areas have experienced as much as 1 mudslide per kilometer. This definitely makes the construction of the China-Nepal Railway even more intricate. Because of this, the team behind the construction has to come up with ways to deploy advanced technical methodologies and meticulously crafted design strategies if they're to uphold the paramount aspects of construction quality and safety. This new railway will extend the Rigi Railway, which is a branch of China's Qinghai Tibet line that goes into Nepal. A look at the project plan reveals that the China-Nepal Railway will be about 335.5 miles or 540 kilometers long. It's set to start in Tibet, China, and extend all the way to Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal. It's expected to take 10 years for it to be complete. However, the Chinese might surprise it and finish it even before 10 years. One of the most astonishing things about this railway is that it comprises 98 segments. These segments are made up of bridges and tunnels. And among these tunnels, 45 will go through the famous Himalayan mountains. However, the greatest challenge the construction team will encounter is getting these segments through the Mala Mountains, an offshoot of the Himalayas. This will involve constructing an insane tunnel through the Mala Mountains, which has been given the name the Himalayas Tunnel. It goes without saying that the Himalayas have been known as one of Earth's most loftiest mountains, and very few inhabit them. This is because of the impressive nature here, and to even think of creating a tunnel through an entire mountain is a great task on its own. I'm sure you can already imagine how much they'd have to do for this to be successful. To ensure that the China-Nepal Railway passes through these towering peaks, China initiated the construction of the Himalayas Tunnel in February 2023. 5 months into the excavation, the construction team had managed to excavate a total of 1.04 miles, 1,680 meters. This was pretty fast, given that other nations like the US, Germany, and other developed counterparts would take about a year to achieve this. However, as much as it is a significant milestone, it represents merely a fraction of the entire tunnel project. According to the blueprint, the Himalayas Tunnel is estimated to be about 18.6 miles or 30 kilometers long. So they still have a very long way to go. It's been reported that China is planning to invest more than $1.4 billion in this project. This gives an average of $46 million per kilometer. Interestingly, when you compare this to the cost of the world's longest railway tunnel, the Qatar Tunnel, you can see China's infrastructure initiatives' efficiency and scale effect. The Qatar Tunnel was estimated to cost about $198 million a kilometer. However, China's infrastructure projects are known to offer superior cost effectiveness and scale compared to those of other nations. And with the present construction speed, it's been estimated that the Chinese construction team might be done with the Himalayas Tunnel by December 2024. However, the construction of such a massive tunnel has its challenges. Firstly, the tunnel's set in a high-altitude, cold region. This brings about significant obstacles to engineering operations. The greatest one is the lack of oxygen as they go deeper. According to geographers, the oxygen concentration in the air and at altitudes that are more than 15,000 feet or 4,800 meters above sea level is less than half that found in lower regions. And so to see the tunnel to completion, the construction team has to sustain regular work routines as they ensure a steady supply of oxygen through specialized generators. Ultimately, to make the process faster and more efficient, the construction team deployed the Jinhua Shield machine, a marvelous creation conceived and developed within the country. This incredible machine boasts a diameter of 52.7 feet, 16.07 meters, and a mass of 4,300 tons. It's pretty powerful, given that it can excavate a tunnel segment equivalent in height to almost 6 stories in a single operation. This machine's been a crucial instrument in constructing the Himalayas Tunnel. The machine comes with forward cutting blades and cutting-edge technology that cleaves through soil layers like a piece of cake. Concurrently, it disposes of the excavated earth through a conveyor belt mechanism. The shield machine has been built so that it digs further. A reinforced support system comes into play. This system applies precast concrete lining, which has been augmented by integrating steel sheet piles and sturdy steel arches. The entire project is unlike any other. However, we can be sure that China will definitely achieve this, maybe even before the estimated period. New York State is, without a doubt, one of the cornerstones of American civilization, so it's hard to believe that this region's served by a decaying railway system. The Northeast Corridor is the longest electrified rail corridor, spanning up to 8 states from Washington, D.C. to New York to Boston. This 457-mile-long corridor is utilized by both passenger and freight, as well as intercity travelers, serving 17% of the U.S. population. Dubbed the busiest railway line in the country, it supports more than 2,000 trains with 800,000 daily passengers. The portion of the Northeast Corridor between Newark, New Jersey and Penn Station is 10 miles long and carries over 200,000 daily on Amtrak and NJ Transit passenger trips. It has only 2 tracks which support approximately 450 trains, while a majority of the remainder of the Northeast Corridor has 4. The 2 tracks mean that there's a traffic bottleneck in one of the most vital arteries of the region. Picture this: if even one of those tubes under the Hudson River becomes unoperational, it'll cause a $16 billion loss to the nation's GDP and add 30 minutes of travel time in an already congested railway station. At this point, it's very much in America's interest to make travel fast and headache-free in such an essential economic region. The Gateway program will replace and update rail infrastructure assets that, in many cases, are over 100 years old. The 2-track rail line used by Amtrak and NJ Transit Rail Operations, NJT, has reached its full capacity of 24 trains per hour. To increase the railway capacity of this section of the corridor, there are several expansions planned. This includes 1. A new tunnel under the Hudson River, 2. Stabilizing the existing 100-year-old tunnel under the Hudson, 3. New tracks and platforms to be placed on Penn Station in New York, 4. Replacing the Portal Bridge and Sawtooth Bridges in New Jersey. These modifications and several others come at a staggering cost of $16.1 billion. But this price tag seems to be worth it, as this project will reduce travel time, inject $85 million a month into the economy, and create 72,000 jobs. The construction will also utilize U.S. suppliers and manufacturers. More than just stimulating the economy, the Gateway program will eliminate 2 million tons of CO2 from the air. In the beginning, New York and New Jersey were going to divide the project expense, but luckily they'll be saving a few bucks as the government stepped in. As of now, the majority of the expenses will be covered by the federal government. Under the Infrastructure Act, the project received an additional $3.8 billion.
Today's 3.8 infusion follows other funds I announced previously and brings the federal total to over $11 billion.
Consequently, both New York and New Jersey only have to contribute 15% to the Gateway program. The project was proposed in 2011, but it took nearly a decade to convince politicians and federal agencies to fund this cause. In 2021, it was formally approved by the federal government. Work officially began in 2023, although the completion is set for 10 to 12 years later. The first phase of construction includes creating a 2-track tunnel under the Hudson River and replacing the obsolete Portal North Bridge with an elevated one. Let's start with the existing tunnel under the Hudson River called the North River Tunnel. The North River Tunnel is in a desperate need of renovation, not just because it was built in 1910, but also because it was heavily damaged in 2012 by Superstorm Sandy. The intense flooding filled the tunnel with millions of gallons of salt water, which led to disabled trains, signal malfunctions, and delays. The magnitude of this damage created an urgency for its speedy refurbishment. In May 2014, Amtrak stated that within 20 years, one or both of the tunnels would have to be shut down, as they are more or less operating at full capacity. The Pennsylvania Railroad started construction in 1903, and it was open to the people in November 1910. The tunnel was considered state-of-the-art by the standards of the 20th century, but not so much now. It's a simple 1-track in, 1-track out system connecting New York and New Jersey. The tunnel was created using cast iron tubes, and they lie 20 feet below the riverbed and sill. The neglected walls are unable to stop the saltwater from intruding into the tunnel. The continuous leaking of saltwater has damaged the concrete, which is now falling apart. Inside the tunnel, 2 bench walls run on both sides. These bench walls are also corroding. It's important to note that the bench wall has ducts that store the power cables that serve the trains and Penn Station. The final nail in the coffin was Superstorm Sandy. It left behind a large residue of salt on the cement walls, decomposing them over time and eroding the copper cables. As such, there's very limited flexibility when incidents occur in the tunnel. The new 2-track tunnel will be constructed between Bergen Palisades in New Jersey to Manhattan. So now instead of 1 tunnel, you got 2 tunnels under the Hudson River. Just like the North River Tunnel, the Portal North Bridge is also more than a century old and in dire need of replacement. It's a movable swing span bridge that crosses over the Hackensack River, taking trains into and out of New York. Being a critical link of the Northeast Corridor, it carries 450 Amtrak and NJ Transit trains each day. Due to age and fragility, trains are restricted to a maximum of 60 miles an hour over the bridge. As it is movable, it can open and close to allow maritime traffic to pass through. However, its electrical and mechanical components malfunction often, delaying the opening and closing of the trains. That's why engineers thought it would be best replaced by a modern, more reliable fixed-span bridge. The new bridge would be much higher over the water, allowing boats to pass underneath without the need to open and close. It'll have higher speeds along with increased capacity and save millions of dollars in maintenance costs. In the same fashion, a second bridge called the Portal South Bridge will stand alongside the North Bridge. The South Bridge will also feature a 4-track like the rest of the Northeast Corridor. Phase 1 also includes the construction of a concrete casing on the west side of Manhattan and Hudson Yards to preserve the right-of-way for the future tunnel to Penn Station in Manhattan. Interestingly, before the Gateway project was even a thing, a similar project called Access to the Region's Core was being pitched. Although the idea was scrapped, this plan similarly aimed to create a new tunnel, a new rail yard, and a subway. A new station adjacent to the New York Penn Station was to be constructed, as running more trains into the current station was deemed unfeasible. An estimated budget for the project was $8.7 billion. Construction began in mid-2009 and the project was slated for completion in 2018. But in a shocking turn of events, it was canceled by Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey, who cited the possibility of cost overruns and the state's lack of funds. But what's sadder is that $600 million had already been spent on that project. This decision remains controversial till today. The future phases of the Gateway program will replace and expand the Sawtooth bridges on the Penn Station in Manhattan. In late 2023, Amtrak, in coordination with New Jersey Transit, began the procurement process for the Sawtooth Bridge's replacement. This replacement program will preserve and expand its capacity. The new bridge will feature a 4-track structure which will double the capacity in one of the most congested and complex locations on the corridor, where these different services all come together. The Federal Railroad Administration, FRA, recently awarded this project up to $133.32 million in grant funding to support early construction activities. The Sawtooth bridges are owned by Amtrak and are used by 400-plus trains a day belonging to the New Jersey Transit, PATH, and Conrail freight train. In addition, Penn Station's also due for a multi-million-dollar overhaul. It's one of the busiest transit stations in the world, seeing an average of 650,000 visitors passing through its halls on a daily basis. Its 21 tracks accommodate approximately 1,300 train movements each weekday. The reconstructions needed to correct the substandard conditions experienced by hundreds of thousands of customers at Penn Station. The project will add at least 9 new tracks to the station, increase the number of entrances, and provide more accessibility options. Moreover, new platforms, railroad systems, passenger concourses, underground connections, and support services will be added to the station. Overall, this expansion will allow more than a doubling of peak-hour passenger trains once future capacity improvements are constructed. Another target of the Gateway program is the Dock Bridge. It crosses the Passaic River in Newark, New Jersey. Made operational in 1935, this 90-year-old structure is in for repair. Since it's a movable bridge, the plan is to convert it to a fixed bridge to reduce delays. The project would also repair the bridge's steel and concrete, and remediate and repaint its structure. Officials at the Gateway Development Commission have publicly stated that by 2038, they'll have finished digging and constructing the new tunnels and then rehabilitating the 2 existing Trans-Hudson tubes. However, the audit performed by the U.S. Department of Transportation's Transit Administration shows that this work will likely take until 2040. The complicated geography of the Hudson River poses a challenge to human ambitions and requires substantial prep work. Despite the setbacks, the Gateway program was a much-needed step towards streamlining travel in a region that contributes almost 20% to the GDP and hosts 97 of the 500 Fortune companies. It's a critical element of the nation's transportation network, linking millions of people to good jobs and connecting this region with the rest of the country.
As the great writer Ernest Hemingway once remarked, there are only 2 places in the world where we can live happily, at home and in Paris. Paris, otherwise known as the City of Lights, is a heavily romanticized spot with major films and events occurring around the year within its confines. Every year, millions of people flock to this destination. A 2023 estimate showed 44 million tourists traveled to Paris, making it the most visited city. But beyond the Eiffel Tower, the Mona Lisa, the croissants, it's a city with real problems, and one of them is getting around. Île-de-France is a 12,012 square kilometer land that surrounds Paris and boasts a population of 12 million residents. A comparison among 6 different countries found that Paris is the most congested city on the continent, followed by London and then later on Ruhrgebiet in Germany. More than 8 million trips are made daily on Paris's transport network. Generally, Ile-de-France drivers spend more time in traffic compared to drivers in the UK, Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. Paris traffic problems had their roots more than a century ago. In 1894, there were only 200 cars on the roads in France, then 3,000 in 1900, 10,000 in 1903, and 50,000 in 1910. The year 1920 oversaw an explosive increase in the number of vehicles by 150%, and by 1935, there were over 2 million vehicles on the road. The air quality deteriorated severely in 2015, with Paris recording the 9th highest death due to air pollution among major cities globally. There are two immediate problems with the Parisian transport system. One of them is that the system was built more than 100 years ago. This means that the dense mess of trains, trams, and buses laid out by Georges Eugene Haussmann in the late 19th century is no longer compatible now. As the population of Ile-de-France has tripled over the last century, space on land became limited, causing property prices to rise. This forced more and more people to relocate 30 to 40 kilometers outside the city and live in areas with fewer transport connections. That means that a large part of the population can't take advantage of bicycle sharing, car sharing, driverless trains, or electric buses. They also can't travel between suburbs easily because most train lines go straight into Paris. Missing a suburban train can mean waiting a half hour or more for the next ride to work. While the roads and highways are generally well maintained, the trains could make use of some upgrades. More and more residents complain about the frequent train delays and even cancellations. Although Paris has a regional express network, or RER, with 5 lines and 587 kilometers of rails connecting the city to the distant suburbs, there's no widespread network available. But it seems like Paris is finally taking definitive steps to resolve these issues in the form of a $45 billion transport project. Known as the Grand Paris Express, it aims to double the size of the existing metro. It's currently Europe's largest transport infrastructure project and the 4th largest on the planet. What exactly is the project about? Can it solve the issues of a metropolis already overburdened by foreign tourists? The Grand Paris Express will add 200 kilometers of tracks and 68 new stations. It is projected that it'll serve 2 million passengers a day. Under its name, 4 new metro lines, namely 15, 16, 17, and 18, will be constructed, while the existing lines of 11 and 14 will be extended. The idea is to better connect distant Paris suburbs to the city and each other, and in so doing, improve the commercial viability of its connected neighborhoods, business districts, and municipalities. 30% of it's being financed by the Société du Grand Paris, while the remaining 70% is by the local authorities through earmarked taxes, subsidies, and loans. Given the sheer scale of the project, there will be a big environmental cost as a result of its construction. But once in operation, the project's expected to become a very powerful saver of carbon, which is why Harvard University awarded it the 2023 Veronica Rudge Green Prize in Urban Design. For context, it's expected to reduce 14.2 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions by 2050. Line 14 North Extension included the development of an additional 5.8-kilometer-long tunnel featuring 4 new stations from Saint-Lazare to Marie-de-Sévigné. The extension became operational in December 2020. It'll be extended further, connect with the upcoming lines 15, 16, and 17 by 2024. The south end of this line will also provide a connection to Orly Airport, one of 2 airports in Paris. The most important of these lines would be Line 15, which will encircle the city and is divided into east, west, and south sections. As a high-capacity underground rail line, it provides a new ring line around Paris in the departments of Hauts-de-Seine, Val-de-Marne, and Seine-Saint-Denis. It will enable direct journeys between the suburbs, bypassing central Paris. Line 15 is planned to open in phases from 2025 through 2030, while east and west sections are expected to be operational by 2030. One of the stations on this route, Villejuif-Gustave-Roussy Station, is designed by Perrault Architecture. The station's located at an incredible depth of 50 meters, creating a massive multi-level cylinder of open-air space bathed in natural light. Villejuif-Gustave Station will also feature its custom artwork created by Chilean artist Ivan Navarro, who works with light and optical illusions. Once completed, the station will be no less than a spectacle. With 2 overlapping glass ceilings allowing in natural lights, the multi-story tunnel would be facilitated by several escalators for getting travelers down to the base level. And if you look at its design, it looks no less than a set from a Bond movie. Grand Paris Line 16 is a 46.67-kilometer-long line with 10 stations between Saint-Denis-Pleyel to Noisy-Champs. A section of Line 16 between Saint-Denis-Pleyel and Clichy-Montfermeil is expected to be operational by the end of 2026, while the remaining section till Noisy-Champs will be commissioned by 2028. With the news that Paris will be hosting the 2024 Olympics, it has put significant pressure on the authorities to deliver it way ahead of time, or at least some portion of it. Then President Francois Hollande and his predecessor Nicolas Sarkozy promised to make some portion operational in time, long before the city even won its Olympic bid. The promised portion included a full Line 14, plus a partial opening of Lines 15, 16, 17, and 18, which together connect to both Paris international airports. But when you're handling a project as massive as this, delays are inevitable. The Grand Paris Express is no exception, and it has experienced multiple delays over the years. Some of them were beyond their control. Floods, delays in equipment delivery, and perhaps most crucial of all, the COVID pandemic have slowed the progress. And 8 months before the 2024 Olympic Games, only the extension of Line 14 to Orly Airport is expected to open in time. The other lines will gradually come online starting in late 2025, according to the project's official website. However, the French Transport Ministry has still some progress to show. According to them, the new rail lines will increase transport capacity by 15% just in time for the game. This will come in very handy as millions of people are expected to turn up to an already popular summer spot. Interestingly, Paris's first ever metro was inaugurated in 1900 just before the Olympic Games. Line 1, which opened on 19 July 1900, connected Port de Mallet to the Port de Finchen and provided a service to the Summer Olympic Games organized by Bois de Finchen. Parisians fell in love with this new mode of transport, and its success resulted in additional rail tracks that would leave no point in Paris more than 500 meters away from a metro. It was among the world's first cities to have a metro system. Let's return to the express metros and take a quick look at their features. The average speed of the trains operating on the Grand Paris Express will be between 55 kilometers an hour and 65 kilometers an hour. The trains will also feature LED lighting, lights beneath the seats, USB sockets, internet connection, and space for wheelchairs and strollers. There will also be video surveillance to ensure security and prevent incidents. The important specs in the train will be marked with distinctive colors. That's not the best part yet. The train will be driverless and will include electric service braking. As sustainability has become at the forefront of every project in France, the Grand Paris trains consume less energy while also having effective heating, cooling, and ventilation systems. But let's not forget, it's France we're discussing, and as usual, art comes first. The Grand Paris Express will also be reflective of its rich cultural history. The Grand Paris Society decided to allocate a portion of its budget, roughly 35 million euros, to commission contemporary art for each station, creating a vast connected gallery made available to everyone with a subway ticket. It's a fantastic combination of art and architecture that's planned for each of the 68 stations. This takes us to the past where Hector Guillemard, a prominent figure in architecture, designed the iconic metro entrances. The previous RER trains that served the suburbs surrounding Paris also got a gorgeous makeover. The RER-C train, which transports passengers from the city to the Palace of Versailles, has been decorated on the inside with a plastic film featuring fountains, flowers, and furnishings from the palace and its grounds. Nothing better than a Versailles-themed train to take you to the Palace of Versailles. The grand new metro will reduce the number of cars on the streets, thereby reducing traffic congestion and pollution. Another way Paris is doing that is by encouraging more and more people to bike instead of drive. In 2007, Paris introduced Vélib', a successful bicycle sharing program. It now offers about 14,500 bicycles at 1,230 stations. Paris has been increasing its bicycle lanes since the late 1990s and now has about 700 kilometers of bicycle routes. Moreover, the city is also expanding electric bus lines. The goal is to make 80% of buses electric by 2025, and the rest will use biogas. Paris already has one all-electric line served by 23 buses. That's not all. Autolib', an electric car-sharing service, offers 4,000 fully electric cars in the Paris region. It has 100,000 registered users ever since the beginning in 2011. These strategies seem to be working more and more as more Parisians are ditching cars and switching to greener transportation modes. The streets are finally reclaimed from the dozens of cars choking out fuel and engulfing the beautiful city. Residents can now finally take a sigh of relief and enjoy the stunning views the city has to offer. Do you think the Grand Paris Metro can solve the traffic issues of the city?
Sydney is finally getting the transport upgrade it desperately needs with the new Sydney Metro Fast Underground Rail Network. This upgrade includes not only new trains, but also additional station locations, promising significantly reduced travel times across the city. This week marks a significant milestone as all 45 Metro trains in the current fleet have completed at least one journey between Tallawong and Sydenham, which, in case you didn't know, is crazy fast. The Sydney Metro, located in New South Wales, Australia, is a state-of-the-art, fully automated rapid transit system. It began operations with its first segment, the Metro Northwest line, on May 26, 2019. This line stretches from Tallawong to Chatswood and includes 13 stations along a 36-kilometer route, primarily underground. Currently, there is a significant progress on the extension of this line from Chatswood to Bankstown. This extension is part of the City and Southwest project, which involves tunneling under Sydney Harbor and through the city's Central Business District, or CBD. Slated for completion in 2025, the extended line will cover a total of 66 kilometers and include 31 stations. In addition to the Metro Northwest line, 2 other lines are under construction. The Western Sydney Airport project is building a line that'll run from St. Mary's to the new Aerotopolis station in Badgerys Creek, spanning 23 kilometers with 6 stations. This line will serve Western Sydney International, Nancy Bird Walton Airport, set to open in 2026. The Sydney Metro West project will connect Westmead to a new station at Hunter Street in the Sydney CBD. Covering about 24 kilometers, this underground line will include 9 stations and is expected to start serving areas like Parramatta and Sydney Olympic Park by 2032. The Metro Northwest line stands out as Australia's first fully automated heavy rail system. Managed by Sydney Metro Agency under Transport for NSW, the service is operated by Metro Trains Sydney and integrates seamlessly with the Sydney Trains network. This integration ensures a smooth and efficient transit experience for all passengers. The initial concept for a metro system in Sydney emerged in 2001 when Ron Christie, the Coordinator General of Rail, introduced his long-term strategic plan for rail. This report proposed the future construction of metro lines independent from the existing network to address anticipated capacity issues post-2020. However, the New South Wales government initially dismissed these ideas as merely a preliminary list of possible projects. The concept of a new metro system re-emerged in late 2007 when the New South Wales government deliberated over an underground Anzac line, which was envisioned to run from West Ryde in Sydney's northwest to Malabar in the southeast. Despite these discussions, the project never materialized. In early 2008, following the abandonment of various projects under the 2005 Metropolitan Railway Expansion Program (MREP), the government announced the Northwest Metro. Planned as a 37-kilometer line from Rouse Hill to Sydney CBD, the project carried an estimated cost of $12 billion. Construction was scheduled to begin in 2010 and conclude by 2017. On 15 May 2005, just before his resignation, Premier Bob Carr had announced the MREP, which included the Northwest Rail Link from Cheltenham to Rouse Hill, a Southwest line from Glenfield to Leppington, and a CBD rail link from Redfern to Chatswood. The entire program was projected to cost about $8 billion, with $5 billion allocated for a new tunnel under the Sydney Harbour Bridge in the Sydney CBD. The MREP aimed to enhance connectivity for the growing suburbs, but it faced criticism for perceived lack of implementation, particularly highlighted by the truncation of the planned Parramatta to Chatswood rail link. In 2006, under Premier Maurice Yema, planning controls were established along 2 potential metro routes in the CBD, known as Metro West and Metro Pit, to safeguard future development options. These controls required developers planning to dig deeper than 2 meters within a 25-meter buffer zone around the corridors to obtain approval from RailCorp. The Northwest Metro's construction was initially tied to the privatization of the electricity network. However, a change in leadership in late 2008 led to the project's cancellation due to budget constraints. In its place, the government introduced the CBD Metro, a shorter 9-kilometer route with a $4 billion budget. Starting from Rozelle in the inner west and extending to the Central Railway Station through the CBD, construction was slated to commence in 2010 and conclude in 2015. This metro was envisioned as the core of a future expansive network, with a plan for a West Metro extension to Westmead and Parramatta, contingent on securing federal funding. The proposal received mixed reactions. Opposition leader Barry O'Farrell criticized the Premier for apparent improvisation, pointing out that cost details were released post-announcement. The Greens also voiced concern, suggesting the route was strategically planned to pass through electorally sensitive areas. The government's initial funding request to Infrastructure Australia was denied because of lack of integrated planning. Subsequent revelations showed a cost escalation from $4 billion to $5.3 billion in just 3 months, and internal estimates indicated that the metro would operate at only 15% of its full capacity. In early 2010, the project was scrapped following the Premier's ousting in 2009. By then, the government had already spent nearly $410 million on the initiative. The new Premier, Christina Kennelly, shifted focus back to expanding the existing heavy rail network, prioritizing the Northwest Rail Link and Southwest Rail Link. In 2012, the newly elected coalition government unveiled Sydney's rail future and the NSW Transport Master Plan. These plans included building the Northwest Rail Link as a single-deck, privately owned, operated metro that would eventually connect to a second harbour crossing. Critics raised concerns about this approach, arguing that the single-deck trains might lack the capacity of the existing double-deck trains and pointing out compatibility issues with trains from the existing network using the new crossing. Subsequently, the project scope expanded and it was renamed Sydney Metro. In 2014, as part of the Rebuilding NSW Infrastructure initiative funded by the Sale of Electricity Infrastructure, the government announced the second harbor crossing, dubbed Sydney Rapid Transit. This new railway would traverse Sydney Harbour, tunnel beneath the CBD, and extend into a modified segment of the Bankstown line to the Bankstown Railway Station. By 2015, with the passage of power privatization bills, the system was officially designated as Sydney Metro. Despite opposition warnings that the proceeds from the power infrastructure sale might not cover all the required capital, the project moved forward. In July 2018, the Sydney Metro entity was established as a statutory authority, charged with overseeing the Metro's development. As of March 2021, Peter Regan leads the agency as the chief executive. Significant developments continued into 2023. In January, it was announced that emergency exits in the tunnels of the Metro West and Metro Western Sydney airport lines would be spaced at approximately 240 meters, aligning with the setup of existing lines. During the 2023 state election campaign, Premier Dominic Perrottet announced plans to draft business cases for extending the Sydney Metro network by an additional 100 kilometers. Proposed extensions included routes from Tallawong to St. Mary's, Westmead to Aerotropolis, Bankstown to Glenfield via Liverpool, and MacArthur to Aerotropolis. These expansions aim to further integrate Sydney's growing regions into the metro network, enhancing connectivity and transportation efficiency across the city. Sydney Metro, operated by Metro Trains Sydney, a collaboration among MTR Corporation, John Holland Group, and UGL Rail, runs under a 15-year contract. The network is distinguished by its full automation at the Grade of Automation 4 GOA 4 level and employs communications-based train control (CBTC) signaling across the system. Network overview. The primary line, the Metro Northwest line, connects Tallawong to Chatswood. It features 13 stations along a 36-kilometer route. Since July 2019, the line operates with a travel time of 37 minutes end-to-end. During peak hours, trains run every 4 minutes and every 10 minutes during off-peak times. Initially, frequency was set at every 5 minutes during peak hours right after its opening in May 2019, but soon adjusted to the current interval. For the first 6 months post-launch, Metro Trains Sydney supplemented late-night services from Sunday to Wednesday with rail replacement buses. Capacity and development. The network uses platform screen doors to enhance safety across all stations. Initially, the line employed 6 car trains running at 4-minute intervals. The future extension of Bankstown under Stage 2 will allow for 8 car trains and a 2-minute headway between trains, aiming to meet higher passenger demand. This setup could accommodate up to 46,170 passengers per hour per direction. Rolling stock. The Sydney Metro uses 22 sets of 6-car Metropolis stock trains, fully automated and electric. These single-deck trains include 2 dedicated spaces per train for prams, luggage, and bicycles, and feature 3 doors per side per carriage with an open layout between carriages. Each train has a seating capacity of 378 and can accommodate a total of 1,100 passengers. The seating is arranged longitudinally, typical of Metro trains, and they operate using Alstom's Urbalis 400 signaling system. Before commencing operations, a full-scale model of the new train was displayed publicly, including at the annual Sydney Royal Easter Show. The trains were manufactured at Alstom's facility in India, with the first train arriving in Rouse Hill in September 2017 for testing. This phase included tests on brakes, passenger information displays, and door operations. Ticketing system. Sydney Metro integrates the Opal card system, which is also used across the Sydney Trains network and NSW TrainLink intercity services. The fare system calculates trips involving different modes as a single fare without interchange penalties. Opal cards are valid on Metro, bus, ferry, and light rail services, though fares for each mode are separate. Sydney Metro also offers a free school Opal card for students traveling to and from schools. Sydney Metro, set to open in mid-2024, represents a significant advancement in Sydney's public transportation infrastructure, promising efficient travel across multiple regions with its extensive network expansions and new lines. The Sydney Metro Northwest, for instance, has its northern terminus at Tallawong Station and links to Rouse Hill to Epping with 8 new stations. This new line includes a continuation through the converted Epping to Chatswood rail link, allowing interchange with Sydney chains at Epping and Chatswood. It was recognized with NSW Premier's Award in 2016 for the construction of twin tunnels from Bella Vista to Epping, Australia's longest at the time. The Sydney Metro City and Southwest extends from Chatswood to Bankstown via a new harbour crossing and Central Station. Part of the existing Bankstown line will be modified for driverless trains. This extension is expected to increase the Sydney rail network's capacity by up to 60%, facilitating the movement of over 100,000 extra commuters an hour. The completion of this line is targeted for 2024, with the Bankstown conversion following in 2025. Meanwhile, Sydney Metro West, which connects the Sydney CBD to Westmead, has confirmed stations in Parramatta and Sydney Olympic Park. The 2019-2020 state budget allocated $6.4 billion, with construction fast-tracked to start in 2020 and projected completion by 2032. Sydney Metro Western Sydney Airport runs from St. Mary's to Badgerys Creek Aerotropolis via the Western Sydney Airport. This line is supported by both federal and state contributions, totaling more than $5.5 billion, and is scheduled for completion in 2026 to coincide with the airport opening. There are also proposals for future extensions, such as extending the Northwest Line to St. Mary's, connecting to the Western Sydney Airport line, and planning the City and Southwest Line to extend from Bankstown to Glenfield via Liverpool, and potentially further to Aerotropolis. New projects envision a metro line from the CBD to the southeastern suburbs, including Radnwick, Marlborough, and Kogarah by 2056. Commuting times are set to improve significantly with the new metro, with estimated times such as Castle Hill to Martin Place in 35 minutes, Macquarie University to Central in 26 minutes, Chatswood to Gadigal in 13 minutes, and North Sydney to Barangaroo in just 3 minutes. This project aims to transform Sydney's urban mobility, providing rapid transit options across key districts, significantly enhancing daily commutes and supporting the region's growth. This ambitious development will offer residents quicker, more efficient travel options and potentially boost economic activities along its routes. Back in 2020, Google made a bold aim of using only clean, carbon-free electricity by 2030. Data centers are notorious for consuming billions of kilowatt-hours of energy each year. They roughly use 1% of the electricity on the planet. And this number can rise to 8% by 2030. Google's commitment to sustainability isn't new. This tech giant achieved carbon neutrality in 2007 and has purchased more than 10 gigawatts of clean energy by investing in wind and solar technologies in places like Astoria, South Dakota, Chile, and Taiwan. From 2007 to 2020, Google matched 100% of its global electricity use with purchases of renewable energy. That too during the 2 pandemic years when everything shifted to online and the strain on global data servers doubled. People's work, school, doctor's appointments, first dates, and visit with loved ones happened virtually. Google Meet and Duo hosted over 1 trillion minutes of video calls in 2020, but still kept pace with achieving its goal. However, there are instances when wind and solar combined couldn't keep up with Google's energy demand. So when the sun doesn't shine bright or the wind is slow and non-existent, they often have to rely on carbon-emitting resources such as coal and gas power plants. That's why Google made an early bet on geothermal energy that can help progress its green goals. The company partnered with Fervo Energy in 2021 to develop next-generation geothermal power. This power plant is situated near Winnemucca, Nevada, and sends 3.5 megawatts of energy to the power grid. For context, 1 megawatt is enough to meet the demand of roughly 750 homes at the same time. Google has 2 data centers there, one near Las Vegas and the other near Reno. These 2 sites can utilize clean energy for the main grid. Unlike wind and solar energy models, geothermal energy can be extracted all year round and doesn't have to be restricted to weather changes or wind pressure. As of now, geothermal energy supplies less than 1% of the world's energy needs. That's not impressive, but it could be enhanced in the near future. But how does geothermal work anyway? We know that the Earth's core is very hot. The high temperature heats water in the underground reservoirs in the Earth's crust. This hot water might come down to the surface in the form of hot springs and geysers. A geothermal power plant draws water from these underground reservoirs to the surface to produce steam. This steam then drives turbines that generate electricity. The estimated energy that can be recovered and utilized on the Earth's surface is 4.5 times 10 to the 6 exajoules. This is enough to power the Earth 3 times over. It's important to note that not all countries can easily extract geothermal energy, as it is usually found along major tectonic plate boundaries where most volcanoes are placed. And even if availability isn't the problem, renewable technologies like these are still too costly for large-scale deployment. These same obstacles are faced by Google, particularly in some sites in Asia. Most geothermal stations are built where naturally heated water can be easily tapped, like hot springs and geysers. This hot water is pumped to the surface, where it produces steam that powers turbines. But guess what? The site where Google's geothermal plant stands is just dry rock with no hot water. So how did Fervo solve this problem? And can other countries with low hydrothermal resources learn from it? While hot water might not be present everywhere, hot rocks are virtually everywhere, with temperatures rising hundreds of degrees Fahrenheit within the first few miles of the surface. Fervo drilled thousands of feet below ground to reach the hot rock and pump its water into the pipeline, which got heated up underground. Using the tricks mastered by the oil and gas industry, Fervo drilled 2 wells that each extended more than 7,000 feet down. This is more than 2 times the length of the Burj Khalifa, but they didn't stop there. They extended both their wells horizontally up to another 3,000 feet. To access more feet, Fervo created fractures in the rock. Cold water is then pumped underground through the well. Due to the high pressure, water enters the fractures where it comes in contact with heat. The water gets heated to a temperature of around 375 degrees Fahrenheit and rises to enter the second well. Fervo announced that its experiment had succeeded after a month-long testing period that saw temperatures at the bottom of the boreholes reach 375 degrees Fahrenheit. This experiment gave them enough steam to produce an estimated 3.5 megawatts of electricity. While this output is less than the initial 5 megawatt estimate when Google announced it, small modifications can increase its generation power in the future. Fervo CEO Tim Latimer also pointed out that this project is the first to achieve such a high level of performance. Google's Nevada station is built close to a traditional geothermal power plant so that the project can use existing turbines and power lines to deliver electricity to the grid. With the success of Google's geothermal venture, Fervo wants to replicate this model in as many places as possible to help transition the world away from coal, oil, and natural gas, and hence reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This is also the long-term goal for Google, who want to go completely carbon-free by the end of the decade. In September 2020, Google released a report that showed gaps in its clean energy supply. The green spikes represent the proportion of green energy powering their data centers, while the black region shows the gaps. Google also used other visual data like these carbon clocks to show how green each of their data center is in different locations. These carbon clocks show hourly carbon-free energy performance at each Google data center during September 2019, 1 year before the publication of this paper. Oklahoma shows impressive results with a full green clock, standing at 96% carbon-free energy. The lowest number is found in Singapore, which only shows 3% efficiency. Google has to overcome these gaps if it truly wants to go 100% carbon-free. But wait, wasn't Google already carbon neutral back in 2007? What do you mean they want to go carbon-free 24/7 for all 365 days? This brings us to a fundamental difference between carbon neutrality and carbon-free status. When Google announced that it became carbon neutral, it meant that it compensated for its greenhouse emissions by buying carbon offsets and carbon credits. Carbon offsets allow governments, organizations, and even celebrities like Taylor Swift who keep using their private jets to compensate by supporting projects that reduce or remove emissions elsewhere. On the other side, carbon-free means that Google won't emit any emissions in the first place. It will completely source its energy from renewable sources like wind, solar, and geothermal, and sustainable hydroelectric or biomass energy. In addition, Google is also working to advance other carbon-free technologies like large-scale battery storage, advanced nuclear, and green hydrogen, which can all help in the fight against climate change. There is no doubt that geothermal energy has a lot of potential in the future as more sophisticated techniques will be there to tap the Earth's heat. The idea of geothermal power is simple and elegant. This is why it was even used by people thousands of years ago. Geothermal energy from natural pools and hot springs was used for cooking, bathing, and warmth. There's evidence that Native Americans used geothermal energy for cooking as early as 10,000 years ago. In ancient times, baths heated by hot springs were used by Greeks and Romans. And examples of geothermal space heating date at least as far back as the Roman city of Pompeii during the 1st century. However, such uses of geothermal energy were initially limited to sites where hot water and steam were accessible. In the 20th century, electricity demand prompted some people to explore geothermal energy as an option. The first breakthrough, or rather the first geothermal power plant, was invented in Tuscany, Italy. Thanks to Prince Piero Gennaro Conti, an Italian businessman, the world first found its way to geothermal energy. He tested the world's first geothermal energy power generator on 4 July 1904 in Larderello, Italy. It was able to produce 10 kilowatts of energy and powered 5 light bulbs. Later, in 1911, the world's first commercial geothermal power station was built there. This plant gradually improved throughout the years, and now Larderello is composed of 34 plants operated by the Italian company Enel Green Power EGP. The capacity of the site is now 800 megawatts and has helped Italy become one of the top producers of geothermal energy in the world. As global temperatures steadily rise due to our continued use of fossil fuel energy, almost every country and business is looking for environmentally friendly options. In 2019 alone, Google enclosed 18 new deals that included millions of solar panels and hundreds of wind turbines spread across 3 continents. These deals have driven more than $7 billion in new construction and thousands of related jobs. The deals include investments in places like the US, Europe, and Chile. In the US, Google purchased solar farms in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Texas, more than doubling the capacity of its solar portfolio. In Chile, Google used a hybrid system of both solar and wind to power its Chilean data center. After the success of Google's geothermal site in Nevada, the tech giant partnered with Project Interspace. This company is a leading nonprofit organization dedicated to the global development of geothermal energy. Through this collaboration, Project Interspace can help Google realize its goal of a carbon-free future. Do you think geothermal energy is the future? Can it beat other sources of electricity like nuclear, solar, or wind? How do you make a country full of fjords easy to travel through? Norway's stunning scenery has always been a challenge for travelers. For centuries, navigating its glacial valleys was tough. But now, huge infrastructure projects are making this beautiful land more accessible. A new coastal highway is set to connect 7 cities, cut out ferry crossings, and slash journey times in half. Even more exciting, a one-of-a-kind sea route is in the works. The world's first full-scale ship tunnel. How will they pull this off? Let's dive in and find out. The Stad Ship Tunnel is a planned canal and tunnel to bypass the Stad Peninsula in Vestland County, Norway. This area is one of the most exposed on the coast, with no outlying islands to shield it from harsh weather. It's been one of the most dangerous sections of Norway's coastline. If completed, it will be the world's first full-size ship tunnel. The surrounding waters, called the Stadhavet Sea, are the most windswept part of the nation's coastline, stormy about 100 days a year. Ships often wait days to pass through. Currents from the meeting point of the North Sea and the Norwegian Sea make navigation even harder. Since World War II, 33 people have died in maritime accidents in the Stadhavet Sea. According to Visit Norway, Vikings used to drag their boats over the peninsula just to avoid this dangerous sea. We've built tunnels for boats before, like the one on the Canal du Midi in France, but the Norway project is on a whole different level. Unlike the small tourist boats that navigate the Canal du Midi, this tunnel is designed to accommodate much larger vessels, including cruise ships. To give you an idea of its scale, the tunnel measures 37 meters high, 26.5 meters wide, and 12 meters deep. It'll be capable of handling ships weighing up to 16,000 tons. This ambitious project addresses a problem that has persisted for more than 1,000 years. Since the time of the Vikings, boats have faced a treacherous journey crossing the Stadhavet Sea. The tunnel offers a safer and more efficient route, revolutionizing maritime travel in the region. The surrounding waters, known as the Stadhavet Sea, are the most windswept part of Norway's coastline. It's stormy around 100 days a year, often causing ships to wait days before they can pass through. The currents, formed where the North Sea and Norwegian Sea meet, add to the navigation challenges. The first proposal for a tunnel appeared in an article in the Nordre Bergenhus Amsterdam newspaper in 1874. Shortly after, the same newspaper suggested a railway tunnel across the peninsula, allowing boats to be raised onto wagons and hauled across. This would have cost only half as much as the tunnel. In 2011, a report by Det Norsk Veritas and the Institute for Research in Economics and Business Administration for the Norwegian Coastal Administration concluded that a tunnel would not be economical. They evaluated 2 sizes, a small tunnel costing 1,264 million kroner and a large one costing 2,027 million kroner. The report found that the utility, including saved waiting costs for shippers, had a present value of 304 million kroner for the small tunnel and 314 million kroner for the large tunnel, with saved accident costs of 67 million kroner and 76 million kroner respectively. However, a similar report from 2007 had concluded that the tunnel would be economical, with the Coastal Administration attributing the difference to new and better data. In 2013, the tunnel was included in the National Transport Plan for the first time, with 1 billion kroner set aside from the budget. The planned tunnel will be 49 meters high and 36 meters wide, able to handle ships up to 16,000 tons, including the Hurtigruten and Coastal Express ships. The water inside the tunnel will be 12 meters deep and will reduce journey lengths by 56 kilometers. Two routes were proposed for the tunnel. One, 1,800 meters long, would run from the Ed farm at the inner part of Mulchforden through the Mensidite Isthmus to Kochpalen, the narrowest but innermost part of the peninsula. The other, slightly longer option would stretch from the Scarbo farm to the Flode farm through the central part of the peninsula. The second option was selected for construction. Knut Samset, a project management professor at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, criticized the decision, claiming that modern vessels can navigate the sea safely and that the cost-benefit analysis is negative. In March 2021, the Norwegian Ministry of Transport and Communications approved the project preparations, with the Norwegian Coastal Administration expecting construction to start in 2022. Terje Andrasen, the temporary project manager, stated that construction is expected to start in 2023 and estimated to be completed by 2025 or 2026. The tunnel may open by 2025. Due to the thick gneiss rock requiring tunneling, a drill and blast process is proposed. Materials will be delivered by sea due to the inadequacy of local roads, and a rock wall or possibly cofferdams will be used to keep the tunnel free of water during construction. Approximately 3 million meters of rock will need to be removed. The tunnel's entrances, designed by the Norwegian firm Snøhetta, will feature rough rock walls to blend into the surrounding landscape. Snøhetta's designs also include walkways and a new road bridge to enhance views of ships passing in and out of the tunnel. Negotiations for land purchases and the identification of a principal contractor began in April 2021. Several Norwegian and international companies are reviewing information on the project. Bypassing the Stadhavet Sea could be a significant boost for Norway's tourism sector, while other industries and trades would benefit from the safer passage the tunnel will provide. The construction of this tunnel is not just a massive engineering feat, it also promises economic benefits by enhancing maritime travel safety and efficiency in the region. This project addresses an extreme challenge that has always required an extreme solution. Historically, the Vikings managed the perilous journey across the Stadhavet Sea by physically dragging their boats over land. However, modern engineering now allows us to go through the land, reducing a 2-hour trip to just about 12 minutes. This dramatic reduction in travel time is not only convenient but also significantly safer, making it an attractive alternative for various industries relying on maritime routes. Although contractors are yet to be appointed, the plan for the tunnel is already in place. The upper section will be excavated first, using techniques similar to conventional road tunneling, including underground drilling and pallet rigs. Norway has a wealth of expertise in this area, as the country is home to over 1,000 road tunnels. This experience will be invaluable in ensuring the successful execution of the project. Construction is likely to start simultaneously at opposite ends of the peninsula, creating 2 tunnels that will eventually join in the middle. This approach not only speeds up the construction process, but also allows for more efficient management of resources and labor. The construction process will involve drilling through thick gneiss rock using a drill and blast method. Given the inadequacy of local roads, material will be delivered by sea, and measures such as rock walls or cofferdams will be used to keep the tunnel free of water during construction. Once the excavation reaches the middle and the 2 tunnels are joined, the roof will need to be reinforced with concrete for stability. This step is crucial to ensure the tunnel can withstand the pressures of both the rock above and the maritime traffic below. Following the roof reinforcement, service routes will be added to allow for the transportation of excavated material out of the tunnel. The entrances to the tunnel have been designed by the renowned Norwegian firm Snøhetta. This thoughtful integration of the tunnel into the natural environment underscores Norway's commitment to preserving its stunning landscapes while advancing infrastructure. To dig out the tunnel floor, temporary barriers or cofferdams will be placed at each of the terraced stone entrances designed by Snøhetta. These barriers will keep water out, allowing excavation below sea level to proceed. Once the work is fully finished and all services like lighting are installed and functioning, the tunnel will be slowly flooded and the cofferdams will be removed. In total, about 8 million tons of rock will be removed, with some of it recycled for future projects. This amount is equivalent to around 35 of the world's biggest cruise ships. Removing the material from the site is a complex task due to the lack of a decent road infrastructure around the peninsula. Barges are expected to play a key role in transporting the excavated rock. As with any groundbreaking project, extensive research and testing were conducted to ensure feasibility before approval. This included building a mock-up of the tunnel at a test pool in Trondheim. Researchers used this mock-up to simulate various conditions and found that the vessels could safely and stably pass through the real tunnel without hitting the walls. A digital model of the tunnel was also created and used with the simulator to visualize how ships would approach it and to see how traffic could be managed. Based on this testing, a traffic light system will be implemented, allowing 5 ships to pass through each hour, with a minimum distance of 400 meters between them. However, this system could be flexible, with smaller vessels potentially allowed to pass side by side, further boosting capacity. Recent events in the Suez Canal underscore the importance of thorough testing. When things go wrong on critical shipping routes, the trade implications and the resulting internet memes can quickly spiral out of control. With all preparations now complete, all eyes will be on Norway once construction begins. This ambitious project is expected to be completed by 2025. If this Mission Impossible succeeds, it'll only be a matter of time before other countries adopt similar ideas. While the coastal highway is far bigger and more expensive, this project is no less of an achievement. It may have taken a millennium to figure out, but building a whole new kind of infrastructure is rarely smooth sailing. The tunnel through the Stadhavet Sea will not only revolutionize maritime travel in the region, but also serve as a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. As Norway embarks on this unprecedented journey, the world watches with bated breath. The successful completion of this project will mark a significant milestone in engineering and pave the way for future innovations in infrastructure. If Norway can overcome the challenges and complete the tunnel, it'll set a new standard for maritime travel and infrastructure projects worldwide. We're committed to releasing 2 videos a week. Be sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more visionary builds.